Last month, Donald Trump looked ready to cruise back to the Oval Office. Now Republicans can't get people to stop calling them weird. Trump is melting down at Mar-a-Lago as he watches his polling lead evaporate against Kamala Harris. And at a time like that, a lot of campaign gurus might throw their old playbook out the window, but not Chris LaCivita. No, he's officially a senior advisor of the Trump campaign. He's that guy there. But to insiders, he's known as one of the top guys. He's essentially Trump's de facto co-campaign manager. For 2 decades, LaCivita has connected big Republican donors with candidates in trouble and helped them to win with cutting personal attacks on their opponents. It's a weird career niche that started with one dark money campaign all the way back in 2004.
John Kerry secretly met with enemy leaders in Paris, though we were still at war and Americans were being held in North Vietnamese prison camps. Then he returned and accused American troops of committing war crimes on a daily basis. Eventually, Jane Fonda apologized for her activities, but John Kerry refuses to. In a time of war, can America trust a man who betrayed his country?
To be clear, John Kerry was a decorated war hero who got off his boat to chase a guy with a rocket launcher and risked his own life to save the men on that boat. But that didn't stop LaCivita and his crew from doing that. That was one of the many ads by a super PAC, Swift Boat Veterans for Truth, that helped sink John Kerry's presidential bid. And it was the work of Chris LaCivita, among others, whose attacks on Democratic candidates have at times even made Republican clients uncomfortable. At the time, reporters described him as a Republican hitman, using words like hyperactive, manic, renegade. So you'll never guess what he's doing now. Well, running the old playbook by orchestrating the right-wing attacks on the 24-year military career of Harris's running mate, Tim Walz. I debunked those attacks here last night. They're gross and not worth really litigating. So far, outside of the, again, weird, angry right-wing social media hellscape, they aren't really landing the way attacks on Kerry did. But there's more. The guy who made those attacks against Kerry possible 20 years ago, who bankrolled it, a donor named, wait for it, Harlan Crow. Yup, that Harlan Crow. The billionaire who has lavished gifts on Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas for decades, many of them not reported. In fact, we just learned a new one last week. Crow ultimately gave Chris LaCivita's Swift Boat Group $100,000. What's to stop him from doing it again? Should also mention here that LaCivita isn't just a Trump campaign aide. This year, he also became the de facto COO of the Republican National Committee, which gives him control over its campaign spending. Jonathan Allen is a senior national politics reporter for NBC News. He's been covering the Republican attacks on Tim Walz. He's also in the room at today's press conference at Mar-a-Lago, and he joins me now. Jonathan, everything in politics that's old is new again. Certain things you just do and do and do, right?
Well, and certainly from LaCivita's standpoint, and I think from the Republicans that remember 2004, they feel like the Swift Boat Veterans for Truth ads were very effective in undermining a key part of John Kerry's biography, which is that he was a decorated war hero. Here's somebody who was in charge of boats, 50-foot aluminum boats, heavily armed, traversing the waterways of the Mekong Delta, who was awarded a Silver Star, a Bronze Star, 3 Purple Hearts. And came home and said, with all of that, and having been in Vietnam, I think it's time for the war to end. And by the way, I think there are a number of Trump supporters at this point who would not, be in favor of the kinds of American interventions like we saw in Vietnam. But basically, they went and attacked John Kerry, and from their perspective, it worked to undermine him and hurt his campaign. And of course, 2004 was a close campaign that could have turned on a single state.
LaCivita is one of these sort of like he's kind of like down the block tough thing where like he's always like sort of like doing this sort of villain shtick on social media and like telling Larry Hogan after he said something about the conviction of Donald Trump for 34 counts of felonies, like, you're done, you're dead, man. There was a lot of like braggadocio coming from him, a lot of swagger at the RNC. They're in a different place right now.
I mean, they're definitely in a different place. Just a few weeks ago, Donald Trump was on his way to winning election. I mean, if you talk to Republicans, Democrats, a lot of pollsters, they would tell you that Donald Trump was in the lead. David Plouffe was saying that, on MSNBC's air after the debate, that Trump was winning before the debate. Now you look at the polls, you look at the energy that's going on the Democratic side, you look at the Democrats coalescing behind Kamala Harris, And you have to conclude that this race is significantly different than it was. It is not in a place where Kamala Harris is, but it is in a place where these folks are going to be in a dogfight for the rest of the year.
I want to play a clip of LaCivita that I think is one of the most important things that have been said all campaign by anyone. And there's reporting that shows that this isn't just idle talk, because there's huge amounts of work being done by the Republican Party at state election boards to put their people in place so that they can muck with the machinery of election certification at the county level, at the state level. This is an ongoing project. Here's what LaCivita had to say about when asked a question about Election Day. Take a listen.
It's not over until he puts his hand on the Bible and takes the oath. It's not over till then. It's not over on Election Day. It's over on Inauguration Day. Because I wouldn't put anything past anybody.
What do you mean?
I just don't. I don't put anything past anyone.
I don't put anything past anybody. Now, you could say, well, he thinks that, the Democrats are going to do something. But of course, all of the activity that happened between Election Day and Inauguration Day last time around was done by the man that he is running a campaign for.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fine line between preserving election integrity and threatening it. That what Chris was saying there was walking that line. It's interesting that he picked Inauguration Day. As we all know, the certification of electors happens before Inauguration Day, a couple of weeks before Inauguration Day. So, look, I think that it is, if you work for Donald Trump at this point, you have to be in that position that LaCivita is in. If you were not in that position where you're saying that you were going to fight every legal battle, that you were going to fight over every vote, at least until the certification, you wouldn't be on that team.